You deserved everything you got. This is a union city.
That is a Philadelphia tradition.
Seize the means of podcasting.
Oh, God, the boss has crushed us.
Let me tell you one thing else.
In oldie-timey times,
Who said it? Kanye West or Thomas
we
Paine?
will not raw dog reality for that one.
The pleasure of the flesh is in solidarity.
The Scab Buster.
It's going to be wholly unprofessional.
Keep together strong. Let that be your mantra.
Let's begin.
That is what we're doing now.
Hello and welcome to the Labor John podcast. I'm doing
Hi.
all right. Oh, Jesus. Hi. Well, my name is Sam. I'm the one who didn't say hi. I'm the one who didn't jump the gun. And the one who did,
I'm Gabe.
he's Gabe. He's Gabe, everybody. That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yo,
But he's going to be the one doing the bulk of the talking because today, Gabe has something very special for us. Gabe, what do you have for us?
so if you're from Philly, you probably have a love-hate relationship with our public transit system here. And SEPTA is also one of the most strike-prone public transit systems in the whole of the United States. And so,
That just means our solidarity is just top tier, Gabe.
yes,
That's all it means.
and not that they're consistently the lowest paid. They're some of the lowest paid transit workers in the country. But we're going to talk about the 1971 SEPTA strike.
Going back to the 70s, though.
Basically every newspaper page was like SEPTA strike and then Vietnam War protest. Those were the two headlines.
And then there was a Vietnam SEPTA protest.
So that's where it gets really interesting.
Wait till they start getting Huey's.
Oh,
SEPTA
God.
starts coming in. All you hear is Fortunate Son coming over. Or the Flight of the Valkyries. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, my bus is here.
Well, they did at one point they did talk about bringing in the National Guard to replace the SEPTA workers. So
Mm.
we could have gotten that.
Damn, those poor National Guardsmen.
All right. So for those who don't know, because I guess you can probably figure out from context clues, SEPTA is our public transit system in Philly.
There you go. The Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority.
There you go. So it was formed. It was technically formed in 1963. They had their first founding meeting in 1964, and then didn't actually start doing anything until 1965.
Okay.
And normal SEPTA thing, everything happened late. So, so it was made. Basically, SEPTA is a conglomeration of a bunch of different transit agencies from southeastern PA, and some from northern Delaware, and eventually it did take on all of the regional rail. But in 71, it was just the buses and trolleys and subways.
Okay.
It subsidized the Pennsylvania Central Railroad and the Reading Railroad lines, but didn't operate them. It was weird.
Okay. We should go farther into this, Gabe.
No, we shouldn't.
Please. We can probably carve out a half hour of this episode just for that.
Yeah. So SEPTA started with a union, but they weren't very happy about that, and basically from the get-go took on all of the old anti-union stances that every transit agency that they were formed out of had. The main thing that they kept using, and to anyone that has followed even a modern SEPTA strike or SEPTA wage dispute, it'll be very familiar that they don't have the money.
There we go.
Pay even slightly higher wages.
There you go.
So that was SEPTA's excuse in the 1967 and the 1969 strikes.
Damn. All right.
Both strikes were pretty short, but ended in union victories. And both of them were also after Mike Quill, the founder of the Transit Workers Union,
Yeah,
passed away.
No, Red Mike.
And so he had built both a very democratic union, a fairly radical and progressive union, but during his leadership, had also basically been able to just strong arm companies or strong arm transit agencies into agreeing to workers' demands without strikes. With him passing, leadership of the International went to a guy named Matthew Guinan or Guinan. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his last name.
Guinan.
Yeah. I'm going to say Guinan.
We're going to say Guinan.
I'm assuming that he would be played by Whoopi Goldberg in the documentary or in the dramatization of all this. 1969 was also the first time that they were striking against all of SEPTA, including for the former Philadelphia Transit Company lines. So like SEPTA grew slowly in like those first 5 years in the 60s. But by 1969, it encompassed what we think of today as like SEPTA's trolley and bus lines.
Okay.
Actually more, because we got rid of a lot of them. 1971, they were coming off of, or the local 234 was coming off of 2 victories, but they knew that there was going to be a fight on their hands because basically both of those victories they'd had to go out on strike for, and neither, even though they were short, they weren't, they didn't get like huge wins. It was just a short victory to keep the ball moving forward.
Okay.
So negotiations for the 1971 contract. Now we're just going to stick to 1971 for the rest of this.
Are you sure, Gabe?
Well, actually, it started in December 1970. And pretty much immediately, both sides refused to budge.
Okay.
So normal. Local 234 represented around 5,200 workers at SEPTA.
Okay.
And these are both maintenance workers, ticket takers, and operators. So it's an across-the-board union. At the time, bus and trolley drivers were making an average of $3.93 an hour. $3.93 an hour, which put them at 43rd in the country.
Damn.
Okay. Today, the equivalent is about $30 an hour. SEPTA bus drivers currently start at $20 an hour. So it's not gotten much better.
That's a tough job too.
It is. And one of their demands early on in this too was that they wanted to implement an exact fare system because the bus and trolley drivers kept getting robbed.
Damn.
Because they had to carry change on them.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's so nice, Gabe. That's great.
Yeah. So it's not an easy job. It's a very skilled position, and you're putting your life and 80 other lives at risk every day. So the union was asking for a $1 an hour raise across the board for all staff.
Nope. That ain't happening.
They also wanted improvements to health insurance, life insurance, pensions, and vacations, and then a number of other minor points. Like they had 50 in total, but the main ones were
the fun ones.
Yeah, dollar raise, health insurance, life insurance, pensions, and vacations.
We'll bring back dollar dog days.
Yeah, basically. We'll stop charging you for the pizza parties. So the pension increase, they wanted to go from $255 a month after you turn 65 to $400 a month after 25 years of service or after you turn 60, whichever would come first. And this was actually highlighted in a letter to the editor of the Inquirer. It was a retired transit worker talking about how the union has to take care of the founding members from 1943. Because he was basically talking about, like, these guys set the precedent of beating back the racists in the Philadelphia Transit Company, or Transportation Company, and, like, we need to make sure that we're taking care of them in their old age because they really revolutionized the union. Which is fair.
That is fair.
So SEPTA claimed that would result in 2,000 employees being able to retire immediately, which would increase their operating budget to by $10 million a year. This is also one of the fun things about how SEPTA is set up. They don't have a separate pension fund. Yeah. Their pensions come out of SEPTA's operating budget. Yeah. So basically, every time SEPTA has to ask for a budget to increase pensions, if they don't, then they would basically, SEPTA's excuse is always, then they have to raise fares.
Yeah.
And basically, I can't speak to the mind of the legislators that set this up, but this seems like a pretty ingenious way to have the population of Philadelphia turn against the union. In January 1971, fares had already gone up 5 cents, from 35 cents to 40. So now SEPTA was talking about possibly raising fares again.
Jesus.
Or basically they said, like, if they agreed to these demands, then they would have to raise fares again. So they had 5 bargaining sessions between December and the end of January. And they were able to come to an agreement on 15 points.
Out of 50?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a little bit of progress.
Depends on what the points are, but I guess.
Yeah. So Dominic DeClerico, who is the president of Local 234, basically said that the points that they amounted, or the points they had agreed to, amounted to just about nothing.
Yes, Hawaiian Shirt Saturday will be a thing.
Yes.
Well, yes. We can sign that off, yes. It's a very productive 5 meetings.
Wednesday, March 3rd, negotiations had basically stalled out. Both teams were still meeting at the Bellevue Stratford, but hadn't made any progress. Union called for a mass meeting Sunday, March 7th, where they would hold a strike vote and determine their path forward if there was no agreement. And at the March 3rd meeting, SEPTA laid out its first actual offer.
All right.
Because since December, SEPTA hadn't actually put anything on the table. They had just been negotiating whether or not Hawaiian Shirt Fridays was going to happen.
We've got 150 points to go over.
So SEPTA's offer included a 15-cent per hour raise, which
they wanted $1. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That would then raise to 30 cents an hour after 2.5 years.
Okay.
They would increase pension payouts from 255 to 270. In total, this would increase SEPTA's operating budget by $4 million. SEPTA claimed the union's demands would increase it to $40 million, or by $40 million. And SEPTA also claimed that they didn't even have the extra $4 million that they were offering. So
then what are we doing?
Yeah, like that's kind of what this always comes down to. And this is also why every time there's any negotiations with SEPTA, it automatically goes to like, well, we have to get the state legislature to give us more money to do this, because
we may or may not have that money. Actually,
it's
tied up. Money's tied up.
Yeah,
Shapir's using it for Sharpies to write on bonds.
Yeah. But don't worry, violence is not part of the democratic process. So Guinan,
except when you're on a SEPTA train or a bus.
Violence
is the answer.
Yes. Yeah, God bless the conductors. And the drivers. So Guinan, having just left the Enterprise,
10 forward.
She quit her job at 10 Forward and took a job as the president of the Transit Workers United, and was the lead negotiator for these meetings. Walked out of that final negotiation, said that SEPTA's offer was insignificant and minute. I don't want to dignify it by calling it an offer. And at that point, negotiations were cut off until SEPTA agreed to return to the table with something actually close to an offer.
Okay.
Negotiations were cut off. There was a looming contract termination at midnight on March 14th. Union held their mass meeting and strike vote on March 7th. But over that weekend, state labor board, or Governor Shapp, appointed
a Shapster.
Can
we re-elect him? Sorry. Can we dig him up and re-elect him?
Yes, I think we should. Also, a little bit of backstory with Shapp and the Union. Local 234, mostly influenced by its president Dominic DeClerico, actually supported
Dominic DeCoco.
Yeah, actually supported Shapp's Republican opponent, which went against the International, and so TWU International actually sent organizers to support Shapp.
Yeah.
But then Local 234 was supporting his Republican opponent.
Ooh, saucy.
Yes. So Shapp also just personally had a bone to pick with Local 234.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm a Shapp girl.
So he appointed a state labor board negotiation panel.
Shapp stewards.
Yeah. To arbitrate the dispute and find a resolution. And this is also now where the public employee law comes into play. That just got passed in October of 1970. And that basically implemented something similar to how the Federal Rail Act, or whatever it's called, operates. So once arbitrators are appointed, then there's a 65-day cool-off period.
Oh, okay.
Before you're allowed to strike. Then, yep. And that gets broken down into it was a 30-day period. Or you have 40 days to review the budget. Then the negotiator or the arbitration panel would present a proposal to both parties. Both parties then had 10 days to review the proposal. If they rejected that proposal, it would be made public within 5 days, which would then trigger another 10-day review period for final acceptance, at which point, after the second review period, you were allowed to strike. So it's super annoyingly complicated.
I need clarification.
Yeah. You're not allowed to strike for 65 days. Let's just put it that way.
That's so fucking stupid, though.
Yeah.
The playbook, page 1, strike.
Yes.
Is literally stop working.
Yes. So to make it even more complicated, there was debate as to whether or not the state labor board even had the legal authority to do this.
Why?
Because you could only do it. It had to be done, I think it's 130 days out from the state's budget being proposed. So it had to be 130 days out from the state budget proposal in order for the state labor board negotiation panel to have authority. They weren't clear whether or not, but because this got passed in October, no one knew if that was going to go off of the 1970 budget or the 1971 budget.
Fucking Christ, Gabe.
So it basically, it was very complicated. No one was entirely sure who had legal authority to do what, but state labor arbitrators showed up and started reviewing documents. Yeah, they started reviewing documents. So whether or not they had the legal authority to do so, who the fuck knows? Union voted to authorize a strike if the contract expired. Fact finders, or the state labor board fact finders, began their research, and basically everyone was just kind of moving forward, wondering what would happen.
Okay.
And
same.
No one quite knew what was going to happen on the 14th. By March 12th, there hadn't been much progress. Again, Matthew Guinan was arguing that their demands were reasonable, and that getting those demands would just bring SEPTA workers in line with transit workers in the rest of the country, rather than being the 43rd highest paid, or 43rd in pay. SEPTA, of course, said that they had no money.
I have $3.
They're poor little babies. They wanted the panel to finish their review by the contract deadline.
That would help.
Yeah. The panel was saying that they needed an extension.
Yeah, you and me both. I'm sorry. What? I thought I was talking to my doctor.
So the union was arguing that even with the state labor board, they still had the right to strike on the 15th. State labor board was saying, listen, just give us an extension and we'll get this resolved, because we don't have time to get this done by the 14th. Finally, at late in the day on the 14th, there was a meeting between all of the negotiating committees and the state labor board panel. It lasted 40 minutes. There they agreed that there would be an extension until the end of the week, at which point fact finders would present a proposal for approval by the union.
This is a fucking courtroom drama.
It is. So, March 30th, I'm not entirely sure what happens between March 9th or March 20th and March 30th, but because the fact-finding panel was supposed to be done by the 20th, but they just seem to have kept going and no one cared.
Okay.
So, on the 30th, March 30th, 1971.
London, England, tea time, 19th September, 1975.
Close.
We were actually pretty close.
You're close.
Also, just random other fun fact that showed up in the newspaper on March 30th, 1971. Strom Thurmond, famous racist and governor of South Carolina.
How does he keep popping up?
It's a good question. But he was 68 in 1971. His 24-year-old wife had her first child on March 30th.
That's a lot of years in between, Gabe.
Yeah, just a lot of
years.
But
fuck Strom Thurmond.
Seriously. Well, she did. But more importantly for our story, new proposal that went out to membership, 75% wage hike across the board for all staff, spread out over 2 years. as well as increases to the pension.
Okay.
In total, it would cost SEPTA an extra $15 million. Union leadership was strongly in favor of this agreement, encouraged all of the membership to vote yes. They actually said it was the best contract agreement that they had seen in Philadelphia in their time in the union.
Now we're 42nd in the nation.
Yeah. So the agreement went out to membership for review. Voting was to be done on April 7th. Ballot boxes were set up at all 12 SEPTA depots across the city. Members would bring their ballots into work and then drop them off in the ballot box and then go to work.
Nice.
Yeah. So the membership, though, was much less impressed with this proposal than leadership. They rejected it in a vote of 3,022 to 1,417.
All right.
So
it's kind of awkward in the break room, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. So almost 2-1. They rejected the proposal and then announced that they would go on strike starting at 4 a.m. Monday, April 12th.
Damn, all right.
The main issue with the proposal is that they'd get an immediate 30 cents an hour raise retroactive to March 15th, then 20 cents an hour on September 15th, then 10 cents an hour on May 15th, 1972, and finally 15 cents an hour on November 15th, 1972. But what that ended up meaning is that by the end of it, you were barely getting a 75-cent raise because for the first 6 months, you're only getting a 30-cent raise.
Yeah.
And basically they were saying, like, we need money now. Like, we can't afford to survive. We need some cash.
Yeah. Should have called JG Wentworth.
Exactly.
877 cash now.
And since SEPTA's budget comes from taxpayers, it is their money, and they need cash now. So SEPTA continued to argue that the strike would be illegal and would endanger the public welfare, which would mean that they could get a court injunction against them.
Yeah.
Yep. So union leadership did not expect the proposal to get rejected. So they scrambled over the weekend trying to avert a strike, basically begging SEPTA to just give just put an extra 5 cents on the March or the initial raise. Just give them a little bit more money initially and they'll be fine. As Dominic DeClerico said, his members need the loot now.
Okay.
A great line.
Okay.
So while DeClerico and Guinan were trying to avert a strike, the membership of 234 were preparing for a strike. They're handing out picket signs, assigning roles, and basically building out all of the strike support that they were going to need come Monday. And the city was also preparing for the strike because they knew from all of the previous strikes that the entire city grinds to a halt when something doesn't work. So at 4 a.m., April 12th, 1971, 5,200 members of Transit Workers Union Local 234 hit the bricks and established picket lines basically at every depot and major SEPTA stop or SEPTA station across the city. So this immediately caused massive traffic jams. And the Pennsylvania or the Penn Central Railroad and Reading lines were packed full of commuters. And because there was a lot of people who usually took the bus or trolley but could take trains. Then when asked about the negotiations that had been running until 3:42 a.m. on the 12th, Matt Guinan told the press, "All we have done here is change the name of the transit system from PTC to SEPTA."
He was more than a hero. He was a union man.
Exactly.
Get our money's worth of this fucking thing.
But the one thing that did change with SEPTA being with that name change is that now it was a public entity, which means everyone was a public employee, which then meant that they were subject to the public employee law that just got passed.
Oh no.
So SEPTA immediately sought a court injunction.
Yeah, I mean there is a war on.
Yes.
We need to get these people to Woolworths, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As fast as possible.
Otherwise the communists win. So there was
Cambodia just fell. Get the target.
Honestly, judging by the summer of 2020, that I can see that response happening. First day of the strike went smoothly, without any arrests or police confrontation. Just a lot of commuters that got very inventive in how they would get around the city.
I got legs.
Yeah. There was a lot of hitchhiking and a lot of people, at least one group of people that I don't know if they rented a box truck or just like jumped in the back of one, but people were commuting in the back of box trucks. So, April 13th saw the drivers for the Red Arrow lines, which were like the suburban trolley and bus routes in Delaware and Montgomery counties. They were organized under a different union. They were Local 1594 United Transportation Union, which, if I'm not mistaken, was a former AFL union, whereas Transit Workers Union was CIO.
Mm.
Obviously, they're now both combined, but they joined the strike against SEPTA on the 13th.
Oh, okay.
Immediately, SEPTA sought an injunction against them as well. And Local 234 members came out and said they're going to remain on strike regardless of what SEPTA does or whatever, regardless of what the injunction says.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, third day of the strike, Judge Jamieson gave his ruling on the injunction request. He approved it and declared that if Transit Workers Union Local 234 continued to picket, he would fine them $100,000 for the first day and then double that for each remaining day. Additionally, he put out arrest warrants for Local 234's president, Dominic DeClerico, and its secretary-treasurer, Joseph Donato. The union's attorney, Leonard Saget, told the judge that SEPTA hadn't been negotiating in good faith and that he ought to knock heads to knock some sense into SEPTA's counsel.
Okay.
These basically everyone involved in this is just the most South Philly Italian person that you can imagine. So he did, however, while the judge continued to or held fast in his arrest warrants for DeClerico and Donato, he did give them until 10 a.m. on Thursday morning to turn themselves in.
Oh.
Rather than, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
It's nice. So they were sentenced to 6 months in prison.
Jesus.
Or until the union started to comply with the injunction. Other union officials would also be fined $250 a day, doubling after the first day.
Fuck this judge, man.
Yeah. So DeClerico got interviewed about his impending imprisonment, and he said, "I expected it. I know what the effect of defying an honorable judge is." And basically said he's prepared to stay in jail for as long as is necessary.
Right.
It was basically just part of his job as union president. And he was willing to accept the punishment on behalf of the union members so long as they were committed to striking.
Respect.
Yeah.
Major respect.
So, and then when he was asked how long the strike would last, he just said, it's up to membership.
Damn. All right.
Yeah. We should also note that at this point, TWU didn't have a strike fund. And these guys weren't getting any strike money while they were out.
Oh, that's not good.
But
that's good to know.
Yeah. But he basically said, like, they will figure it out, and
they were willing and ready to go.
Yeah, like
they're like, now we're gonna strike.
The leadership did not force this. Yeah. This was the membership being like, no, we're gonna fucking fight. So when the news hit the picket line, all of the picketers basically got inspired by De Clerico and Donato getting arrested on their behalf. One guy actually said, this decision by the court is one of the greatest things that ever happened to this local.
Wow.
Because it basically galvanized everyone. One other guy, and again, remember, the most South Philly Italian person you've ever met, Vincent Comarade, said, we feel now like the black men felt when they were slaves, only we're not slaves anymore. We're not going to work for anyone unless we get paid what we rightfully deserve. He then went on to say that SEPTA had proposed a package of garbage.
All right.
So, we're 1971.
Interesting time.
South Philly white guy talking about slavery. It got a little iffy in the beginning, but it ended okay. They were, however, very upset because the international leadership wasn't supporting them in the strike. So they were especially upset with Matthew Guinan, that despite him being involved in all of the negotiations leading up to this, he didn't show up to court to support the local leadership.
Really? Fuck Guinan.
Yeah.
No, man. Just tell him SEPTA is run by the Borg.
Yeah.
Solidarity is futile.
I think it's pretty clear that Jameson is part of the Q continuum, so should not trust him. So another striker who refused to give his name said that they'd stay out on the picket line and that they would bring in the Teamsters to stop deliveries in the city. They'd bring in the longshoremen to stop taking ships and bring in every other union.
Okay.
He said he doesn't want to give his name because otherwise he won't have a job to go back to.
All right. He's got some clout though. I mean, if he could call in the Teamsters and the longshoremen, damn.
Or he might have been wish casting a little bit.
Yeah, he could have been a fucking crazy person, Gabe.
Yeah.
This is Philadelphia in 1971.
Everybody's a little bit crazy. There were also a bunch of newspaper reports about how the increase in traffic didn't lead to like a massive smog-filled cloud because the weather was so bad anyway. So it just blew all the smog away. But it was just like that beautiful bit of 1970s-ness before any kind of clean air or clean emissions laws came out, where every single transit strike just meant like, it's just like acid rain and a lead-filled cloud over the city for 2 weeks.
He got blown over to Jersey. It's cool.
Yeah, it's fine. So fourth day of the strike, Thursday, April 15th, De Clerico and Donato appeared in front of Judge Jameson at City Hall and were put in one of the holding cells to await their judgment. But Jameson, flanked by both Governor Shapp and Philadelphia Mayor Tate, negotiated an agreement with union leadership saying that they would call off the strike, return to negotiations in exchange for Donato and DeClerico being let free. So union leadership, all of the like senior elected officials in the union discussed this and unanimously voted in favor of ending the strike to return to negotiations.
All right.
So that evening at around 9 p.m., freshly out of jail, Dominic DeClerico went out to a SEPTA depot to deliver the return to work message to the 100 strikers there. He climbed up onto the fender of a car and said, "I'm telling you that you must go back to work, and you are telling me," and the crowd all yelled no in response.
Oh, no.
So basically, DeClerico tried to explain, like, you're up against the stacked deck, the city, the state, federal government, everyone is like lining up against you right now. And that they were not going to give in. And the strikers basically just said, we're not fucking giving in either until we win this.
Damn.
And they needed the money now. So the Red Arrow line drivers, though, they called off their strike because they weren't willing. Basically, they got hit with the same injunction that SEPTA did, and they could not afford that. So Red Arrow backed off, but they refused to run the 3 center city lines that went from the suburbs into the city center.
Okay.
And because they said that would constitute crossing a picket line.
There we go. I'm good with that.
Yeah. So 5th day of the strike, April 16th, Matt Guinan and Dominic DeClerico gave a TV address asking the workers to return to work. But across the city, basically picket lines held fast. And a lot of the lower level union officials were on the side of the strikers. At the 20th and Johnson Street Depot, their section chief, Vince Connerat, said, "I'm telling these men not to go back to work without a contract, and I'm not talking about a secret contract. We want to know the terms so we can vote on them."
There we go.
And workers were also furious with Governor Shapp and all of the other government officials for selling them out and not backing them.
Greatest elected official in this century, Gabe.
Shapp.
The Shapster.
So
I will not hear the disparaging of that man's name.
Well, we can disparage Judge Jameson.
We can.
He was becoming more and more frustrated with the continued refusal by the rank and file. And there started to be talk of bringing in the National Guard to basically act as scabs or enforce the injunction. So either drive people off the picket line by force, or they would operate the buses and trolleys.
By force.
Yeah.
Get on the fucking bus.
Yeah.
Exact change.
TWU pickets were also able to prevent Red Arrow lines from operating out of the 69th Street terminal, because even though there were lines that didn't go into the city, and that the union was basically saying, like, it's okay to, or both Transit Workers United and the United Transit Union, both were saying it's fine to operate these lines.
Yeah.
The workers from the Red Arrow lines showed up to work and were like, we're not fucking crossing a picket line.
Damn.
We're just going to stand here and wait.
I love that.
And that way, like, they clocked it, or they showed up to work. They can't get punished for it, but they're not going to cross the picket line. So buses don't run.
All right. That's a little bit of coolness.
Yeah. There was a lot of cool rank and file shit. 6th day, Saturday, April 17th, SEPTA started to negotiate a little bit.
All right.
So at the start of the strike, they had actually revoked their offer with retroactive pay back to March 15th. But on the 17th, they said that they were willing to put that back on the table.
Oh, okay.
So, but the strikers themselves still weren't budging, and basically said if any one of the strikers got arrested, they'd be immediately replaced by another striker, and they would have to arrest all of them, at which point they'd see a lot of baby carriages on the picket lines.
Oh, shit.
So I'm assuming he meant that like their wives would be out replacing them, which is pretty fucking badass. Seventh day, Sunday, April 18th. De Clerico was trying to get a secret ballot vote together for the membership to decide whether or not they wanted to go back to work.
Okay.
He met with 15 section leaders who were basically shop stewards from 9 different city depots to discuss the situation with them and see what their assessment was. But the strikers themselves were still willing to stick it out. One guy actually told the reporters, if I don't get more money, then I'll go to jail until I do.
There you go.
Yeah, they did not have any delusions about what this meant.
No.
On the 8th day, April 19th, courts issued subpoenas for 16 union members, which was 2 shop stewards and 14 rank and filers, over their specific refusal to comply with the return to work order. The picket lines then also expanded, blocking all Red Arrow depots, except for those operating in Chester and Delaware counties.
Okay. All right.
So, because there were some Red Arrow depots in Philadelphia city limits, and those ones were blocked, even though they didn't operate into the city center.
Yeah. Okay.
Complicated. But, basically they just started picketing everything. SEPTA continued to say that they won't negotiate until the strike ends. Members said that they won't stop the strike until SEPTA started negotiating. So the usual.
Yeah.
On the 20th, in an effort to finally resolve the strike, Governor Milton J. Shapp sat down to meet with the shop stewards and the executive committee members of Local 234 in the state office building at Broad and Spring Garden. Again, nothing was resolved here. But one woman shop steward explained that they wanted to meet with Shapp because they wanted to show that they were willing to do this the right way. And they wanted to show they were willing to play the game, but that didn't mean they were willing to give in.
There we go.
So they were like, yeah, we'll talk to you.
Yeah.
You're not going to strong arm us, but we'll talk to you. At this point, Shapp reiterated that he wasn't willing to bring in the National Guard, but also didn't give specifics about how he planned to resolve this. So he was being very vague.
It's Shapp.
Yeah.
It's Shapp.
So while all of this was going on, there were some rank and filers that started to get convinced by the back to work movement.
The back to work movement.
Yeah.
I don't think I like that game.
No. So at 2 a.m. on Wednesday, the 21st, some of the drivers showed up at their depots in their work uniforms. At first, they didn't cross the picket lines, though. So they just stood like across the street in their uniform.
They were nervous.
Yeah, waiting to see what would happen. Because one of the things that everyone was worried about is if like one depot started driving again, there might be fights.
Sure.
Because people get pretty pissed off, rightfully so. So they didn't cross the picket line, but there was no conflicts or fights. So then Donato again tried to get workers to go back to work, and he went out to the Luzerne depot and basically spoke at them through a bullhorn for 5 hours.
What? No.
And then,
That's not how you do it.
Eventually he got shouted out of the parking lot.
Damn.
And just told the reporters they're not going back. Like, this is not happening. One of the major issues they were facing trying to get everyone back to work was that the youngest and most militant members made up the core of the workers at the Luzerne, Southern, and Frankfurt depots, which also made up about a third of the total workforce.
Okay.
And those were the three largest depots.
Okay.
So they had, if they were going to get anyone back, they had to get those 3 back, and those were the most militant. So some of the depots, though, did say that they would go back to work if other depots went back.
Okay.
So they're like, you're starting to see the dam break a little bit, but not much. And at 6 a.m. on April 21st, buses started rolling out of Callow Hill. And then, like, slowly depot after depot followed suit.
Yeah.
It was still too late for the morning commuters. But by the end of the day, service was running normally across all bus and trolley lines.
Damn.
Now, in exchange, they did get SEPTA to agree to 7 days of around-the-clock negotiations to nail down a contract. Shap agreed after... So, one positive thing with Shap, after meeting with all the shop stewards, he agreed to look into reworking SEPTA's structure to make it so that it wasn't so, like, the anti-unionness wasn't so baked in. And by the end of it, he was actually starting to propose free bus and subway fares.
You're kidding me.
Mm-hmm. In 1971, they were thinking about it.
I know I love Shap.
Yeah. So, finally, after 7 days of negotiations, a new contract went out to membership, which had a 75-cent raise.
Okay.
But it would start with 35 cents.
Yeah.
Retroactive to March 15th, then 15 cents on September 15th.
Okay.
So they got an extra 5 cents 6 months earlier, which ended up meaning that they would get an extra $52 over the course of the summer.
Yeah. Okay.
Which it's about $400 today.
It's not bad.
Which it's more than nothing. So
it's money.
Yeah. And like they were saying, they needed the cash now.
Yeah.
So membership voted on the new agreement, and on Friday, April 30th, it was approved in a vote of 3,125 to 812, with 69 ballot challenges. So almost a 4-1 margin. So membership liked it. The one thing I keep thinking about is this was kind of the period where there was a lot of the rank and file movements were really picking up in the 70s. And so you're starting to see it in this. But it was also interesting because, like, you saw that a lot more in like the mine workers and the UAW and the steel workers, which were by the 70s were all very, like, dictatorial, undemocratic unions.
Yeah.
But the transit workers were still one of the more, like, rank and file led, old CIO style ones. And I think that's why they had so much trouble getting the rank and file back to work, because they were used to running the show. So They don't have to listen to anybody. I also really liked Declarico just being like, yeah, going to jail is just kind of part of my job.
I respect that though.
Yeah. He was, that interview with him was in the bar room at the Bellevue Stratford Hotel. So he had like been in negotiation meetings the whole day, then found out he has to appear in front of a judge at 10 a.m. the next day to be sent to prison. And he was just like, it just is what it fucking is. Like, but
Gabe, you have anything else to say?
No.
Damn it, I want to end this on like a note.
Rank and file leads the way.